But I'm going to call this meeting to order. Let's open with a word of prayer. God, we want to thank you for the ability to just think about where you might be leading the United Methodist Church, especially in the state of Missouri and here at St. Paul's. And thank you for these people who are up here before me and took the time away from their busy schedules to come and represent St. Paul's at Missouri Annual Conference. I pray that you can just have us share openly about our experience there, and that would be beneficial for all those who watch this. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Hey, your voice is kind of scratchy. Mine is too. It's changing. Oh, yeah.
16 days.
Yeah.
16 days.
That's amazing. Mine's just like this because of Camp Courage. So yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about annual conference. If you're not familiar with annual conference, there's a set pattern of business that we have every single year. And the way that the business works is we approve several works that the committees bring forward. It works like we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion group. We have a congregational excellence group, and they really focus on, okay, how can we reach more people in our churches? We have a finance team, and they present a budget. We approve that. So we have all these committees that do work throughout the year. I actually serve on the sessions team, which is the team who, hi, Teddy. Are you coming in here? Oh, you need me to sign something? Okay.
If you've entered, you must stay.
Yeah, no. She's with Ascent right now. What is this for?
It is for
The house? Or this something Paula had for me. Is that what Paula had for me?
Yes.
She was trying to get it earlier and we couldn't get synced up. What is today? The 26th?
I know.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Okay. Where were we? Okay. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Missouri Annual Conference work, what we do is we basically have a set pattern of business. So we have committee work. That's like a diversity, equity, and inclusion group. I cannot remember what the name of the group is specifically. But then we have a finance team. We have other committees that present works. We approve all of that stuff. The other thing that we do is we have a remembrance service where we remember those who had died over the past year, which is always a really sobering moment because these were people who gave their lives to the church and to God. So you see them and you see their picture and you realize that they're no longer with us, and it hits you really hard. And they also put their spouses up, and so I'm an emotional wreck because it's like your future flashes before your eyes. You know that one day, that'll be your face there, or it'll be your face there. Ugh, and you don't want to think about that. But so that's one of the works that we do. We also retire pastors, so those who have been in service for, it could be any number of years, and when they retire, they have a map of the state of Missouri, and they have the Methodist logo placed at all the locations that they have served at, which is pretty powerful too, because some people, you can tell, they've moved 4, 5, 6 times because they've just got all of these symbols up there on the map over a 30-year career. And so you retire pastors, they have a chance to share some wisdom with you, which is always really nice. So that's the type of work that we do. We also ordain pastors. Yeah, that's what you're going to say.
I was going to talk about
Thank
that.
you.
The ordinated service is something that I really enjoy, and it's very impactful to me because hopefully that's a path I'll be on one day.
There you go.
I'll be up there getting ordained.
Yeah. And so, so the ordination of pastors, so we commission pastors, which means they're beginning the ordination process. They've got a 2-year residency, basically, until they can be ordained. Then we have the ordination of pastors where they become an ordained elder or deacon in the church. We also license pastors, too. So, and all of those people have passed interviews to get to that place. And it depends on what you're doing. The interview is different. But that's powerful. Also, when we show up, though, this is kind of where I wanted to take us to start, is the bishop gave his opening remarks. He always has an opening time to share about the state of the church. And it's probably no surprise to anyone who is familiar with the Methodist Church that we've been going through a season of pretty significant change. We've been wrestling as a denomination what do we do with human sexuality, and how do we approach that as a church. And basically what the bishop kind of helped lay the groundwork for is he preached and talked to us very really. That's what our bishop does. He just kind of talks to you. But he delivered a message, and the emphasis or point of his message was, you belong here. Basically saying there really is a place for everyone. And in that talk, he shared, practically how this is going to work is we used to be in a system where the church said you shall not do something. So if you had a couple of same sex and they wanted to be married, basically the church prohibited that. And now we have moved into a different sort of system where it is the church's responsibility. We could decide kind of what we want to do. And it's not you have to, or it is you may or you may not. So when the bishop is really laying the case for who we are as a church, it is really a big tent for a lot of people. So anytime we talk about the conversation around human sexuality, it can be a hot button issue for a lot of people. And some people really struggle with it, like, this is not what I think we should be doing. And then there are other people on the other side. This is why we're split. It's pretty 50-50. There are people that say, no, I think we should. So the beauty of the system that we're in now is it is a may or may not. We get to decide some of that. And then he really moved us beyond that conversation. I think sometimes when we get bogged down in and so focused on one particular topic, we really miss the forest for the trees that we're focused on. Yeah. And he really brought us back, and he challenged us. He said, there was a moment where he said, there's a story in Scripture, and this expert in the law, he goes before Jesus, and he said, what's the most important commandment in all the law? And this is in front of the whole annual conference, which is about 1,000 people. And he said, so this question was posed to Jesus. And then the bishop says, what's the answer? He asked all of us. And pretty much in unison, everyone said.
It was a powerful moment.
Yeah, love the Lord your God and love people. That's what it was. And so then we talked about anytime you open your Bible and you try to look at a particular verse, if you're sitting next to a person and they read the exact same verse, the odds of them coming to the same conclusion or same interpretation that you came to are slim to none. So we have the reality is we have already been operating in a church that has a theological framework of openness. And we're not going to agree on everything. We never have agreed on anything. And we have to find a way to move forward with a church where everyone belongs, everyone has a place, even if we can't come to the same conclusion. And so that was the point of that message, and I just thought that was helpful to bring back, and so I wanted to share some of that. And so I really just wanted to open it up then. I brought you all here, so we got Bob Brown, Pastor Keenan Cortez, my wife, Ashley Fields, and Rachel Schellenberger. And Rachel is on our governing board, if you hear her voice. So I just wanted to open it up to have you all share a little bit about kind of your experiences. So if you wanted to talk about the bishop's talk, that's fine if you want to respond to that. But the first question I just want to ask you all is, what did you find interesting about annual conference? Rachel, you've never been before. Ashley, you've been several times. Keenan, you've been a couple times. Bob, you're a first-timer. So is there something that you found interesting that you thought might be helpful for the church to know?
Well, I guess the thing that caught my attention, there's several things, but to pick one out that caught my attention was the ordination service. That was powerful. You never seen so many robes in one place at one time. It is a formal service, and the bishop is laying hands on these people and ordaining them. And they pass out these programs for each one of these special services. And the one for the ordination service, you look in the back of it, and there's this big chart. Spreads out across multiple pages. And over on the right-hand side, here's the bishop and the 4 people that he was ordaining that day. And then you go back on that chart, and it traces the ordination back. I mean, who ordained the bishop, and who ordained him, and who ordained him. And anybody want to guess? I mean, if you read the chart, don't answer. Anybody want to guess how far that traces it back?
Before I was born.
Yep. It traces ordination back to John Wesley in 1728. People that were ordained that Sunday can trace their ordination all the way back to John Wesley. And that caught my attention. I thought that was really neat. So,
Yeah, and that's all done through the laying on of hands.
Yeah.
So each person that was ordained would have had a bishop preside over them and, touch them on the shoulders or the head. Hey, Rob, come on in, my friend. And it would have been passed down from generation to generation. John Wesley all the way down to the person that's being ordained. So, and there's Cindy. Hey, Cindy, come on in. The other thing that you can claim, Bob, so John Wesley was an Anglican priest.
yes.
So you can actually trace his back further, and we would claim apostolic succession. You can trace Wesley's all the way back to the apostles. Because it goes back to the Roman Catholic Church and then back to,
In the ordination service, something else, I still don't really understand about it, but there is an ecumenical component to it. And for the ecumenical component at this service, it was the Archbishop of the St. Louis Diocese of the Roman Catholic Church. He was there participating in that ordination service.
Yeah, and he couldn't lay hands on,
No.
but his presence spoke.
Yeah. He was there for
Some
the
volumes.
ecumenical
Yeah.
component to it.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. What did you find interesting about annual conference? Ashley's going.
I'll say one thing about, I'll let you think for a minute. This is a short one. Going back to the bishop's talk. So, I kind of know where I stand when it comes to this topic, but I think he did a really nice job of, he will say repeatedly, he's a centrist. So, and I don't know the guy personally, but I think he's probably had quite a path to being comfortable with what he believes and what he supports and how he wants to support his pastors in the state. And I think he did a really nice job of clearly stating, you belong here, even if you're not quite sure to. A lot of us, have very strong feelings when it comes to LGBTQ inclusion. And but I think he did a really beautiful job of saying, if you're not sure, you really, we are a church that is much more than this one topic. And if you still find yourself a Methodist that wants to love others and, have this heart for justice, but you're not really sure where you fall on this, we're just asking you to stay open and make sure that you are allowing a space where everyone feels like they belong. And I think he did a really nice job of that. I'm sure he used much more eloquent words, but I think it was a very much a feeling that it's bigger than this one topic, and we just need to all remember that everyone truly does belong, regardless of where you are on specific things. It's much bigger than that. So I think during that opening session, that was very clear. So it was a good start.
For someone who didn't grow up in the Methodist Church, it was just nice to get kind of finally a feel for what that really means, because I've mostly gone to churches that didn't, maybe they belonged loosely to an association, but they weren't really part of a denomination. So it was nice to see that large of a body gently and kindly come together as a group, as the body of Christ. So that was nice to see.
It's difficult to be in the presence of Bishop Bob Farr and not just feel comfortable. He just makes people feel comfortable. He uses the comment all the time, "Hey, friends." He always, everybody's his friend, and he really makes you feel that way. I'll be completely transparent. Annual conference this year for me was kind of wah. Okay, got to go. Licensed pastor on staff at St. Paul's.
Yeah, you're forced to go
Yeah,
at that point.
one of those things I got to do, right? And then you get there and you start seeing faces you haven't seen in a while, and that's kind of cool. You get to hug people and say hi and catch up in their life. And then we go into the very first session, and Bishop comes out and he starts talking. And the more he talked, I'm kind of in my chair like this, and the more he talked, the more I got up. And I'm just like, yeah, come on, preach it. And because I really feel that the message that he gave at the very beginning was what we have been living out here at St. Paul's for a long time. We have been inclusive. We have been welcoming. There are many people that make this whole thing turn, and they come from all different kinds of backgrounds and sexual orientations and all that. So what he has been talking about is a place where the church has finally gotten to, from a you shall not to a you may or may not. It's kind of been what's happening in Joplin's St. Paul's United Methodist Church for a little while. So it was kind of affirming for me that what the United Methodist Church is about today is exactly what we've been doing here, and it felt good to hear that. And he just kind of fired us up. And the one thing that I love about hearing him speak is he's not wishy-washy on it. He comes down, and you know where he stands, and he's emphatic about it, and he kind of brings you along. He's like, get on this train, we're going. And I just love that. He changed my attitude and mood about annual conference in about the first 15 minutes. And it was really good. And that was probably my favorite part of annual conference. And I have to say, as morbid as it may sound, I like the remembrance part too, because, this is a track that's new for me. I've been a licensed local pastor for a year now, but what's this gonna look like in my life 10 years from now, 20 years from now? The remembrance program kind of shows me a glimpse into that. People that have dedicated their entire lives to bringing the word.
This is
spreading
for
the
those
good
who just
news.
came in, this is the memorial service that they have for pastors who had died over the previous year, or their spouse. And it's a powerful service because they put up a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you just realize how many people are a part of this thing. And that's just across the state of Missouri.
And I'm sitting there
Yeah.
with my wife, and I'm seeing the effects that spouses have. Pastors have spouses, and
Yeah.
they go through things too.
Yeah.
It's not just on the pastor, and the spouse has to live that life as well.
They have to move.
They have to move.
Well, I guess they
Yeah.
don't have to. But it usually works
Yeah.
better if they do.
And,
Yeah.
So that's a powerful time for me because I can
Yeah.
look over at my wife and know, looking at the sacrifices that those spouses made for that member that's now gone, and thinking, my wife's going to travel that same road. If I stick this out and I
Yeah.
behave myself and do what I'm supposed to do for the next 25, 30 years, my
Sure.
spouse is going to travel that same road too. So I can talk for a
Wow.
long time.
That's
So,
good. Well, Bob's got something. Go ahead.
I was going to pick up on a couple of things that Keenan said, the memorial service and the bishop making you feel at ease. During the memorial service, one of the pastors that had passed away since last annual conference is former pastor of St. Paul's. And probably, I doubt if very many people would remember him, is Jim Young. He was pastor of St. Paul's in the late 1960s. And he had died, and they honored him. And after that service ended, we were on a break. And I was kind of milling around, and I walked over in front of the stage, in front of where the bishop was, and I was wanting to go talk to the bishop, but I didn't know, can I just walk right up on that stage and talk to the bishop? So I was just kind of milling around there trying to decide what to do. And the bishop sees me. And he says, come on. I guess he read my mind. But he said, come on. And I go up there and I tell him the story that not very many people know. That pastor, Jim Young, when he was in St. Paul's, late 1960s in Joplin, he joined the Missouri National Guard as a chaplain. And he did that for a few years, and then he decided he wanted to go full-time military as a chaplain, and he did. And this is when Vietnam was going on. And while he was in Vietnam, he had a lot of experiences, and he was, at that time, at least, the only chaplain ever decorated for heroism in combat. Now, maybe there's been some more since then, I don't know. But they told us when that happened that at that time, This is the only chaplain that's ever been decorated for combat. So I wanted to tell the bishop that story, and I did, and he listened to it, and he listened to everything I had to say, and he says, well, that was before my time. And I picked up a couple of those memorial service programs, and I was going to give them to people, and then I got to thinking, who am I going to give that to that remembers a pastor 55 years ago? Well, maybe Pauline.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, that's interesting. You talked about Keenan, or Bob, you talked about the ordination service. And for me, anytime you go to the ordination service, like what you're seeing is this watershed moment where people, they've worked years for this, and it's becoming a reality. And they become ordained, and their families are there, and it is one of the most special things you can ever do. I remember mine, and it calls you back to that time, and you remember why you got into this. So for me, just personally, watching other people be ordained, it's like all these memories come flooding back, and I'm like, I felt like if you've seen the movie Lion King, and he's like, you heard me say this maybe, and Simba is he's lost, he doesn't know who he is, and he hears his dad, and he goes, Simba, remember who you are, or something like that. Like I've had those feelings in that service, and man, it just fills you up, because I think the work of the church, it can just be so messy at times. It can be challenging as far as you just want it to go well, but you can also lose your way a little bit, and you're like, okay, who am I? Why did I get into this? And it's like, oh yeah, that's why. And oh yeah, I do have gifts and graces for it, and maybe I should lean into those and not lay those aside. And so it was a powerful moment. So that was one thing that I think is just really helpful for me, to go back into that place and say, okay, now when I come back to St. Paul's, you all better be ready. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay, Ashley, were you going to say something? We do not have to follow this. I just want you all to build this. One question may be enough to cover everything.
Well, one thing that I've always enjoyed, because first time we went to a conference, you weren't even a pastor. We were thinking about it, I think, maybe. I can't remember. Or it was very, very early on. And I remember then, and I felt like it was even stronger this time, maybe because we've been a part of the system for a while, but just the unity that we really are united Methodist, from the commissioning. So, these are young, or not, it's just the beginning pastors. They're appointed. They're going to go out to this 2-year kind of residency thing, very, very beginning stage, clear through ordination, retirement, and death. And there's another service at the very end of conference. I missed it this year, but it's somehow like part of my favorite too, where all the pastors are in their place, but then as they get reappointed, they will stand up and move to the next place. And at conference, you get this real feel. You get this whole full circle of visibly seeing people move across the state from retirement, so you get to see where everybody's lived and everybody's served. And that beginning, I remember your ordination, obviously, but gosh, you see this, you see all this going on, and you're just beginning, even though you've been doing it and feels like forever and preparing for years. But you really do. You get a very strong sense of unity. And I think they did a really nice job this year of also including the lay members in that they are truly as much of the church as pastors are. And, being the spouse and we know we're not moving anytime soon, okay? But we know that someday, we won't be here. And it's so important that we want to create this really strong community, that you're there for each other, that Britain's led you, but we're all together and we're all united. And it's not just this one pastor doing this awesome stuff, that you are as very much as a part of this team as the lead pastors and the associate pastors. It's just I think it's a really strong sense of true unity. You see it from the beginning of their careers through the very end. And this year I felt like they really did a nice job with like the laity, really encouraging them to be active, be a part of that, support the pastors, and just they are very much a part of what the church is. So it is full
I
circle.
100% agree with that. I felt very unified, and I think the bishop did a really good job of addressing the nasty word that we've been using for the last couple of years, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it anymore, or he might come find out where I live or something. But I'm going to say it, Bishop, don't hate me. Disaffiliation has really been a big part of the United Methodist system for the last 24 to 36 months. And I felt he did a really good job of moving us beyond that. That storm is over, the pandemic has passed, and we're going to go on and live our life, and we're going to be United Methodist Church again. And I really love that part of it too, because he just has a way of bringing it home and letting us know, you know what, we've done that. We've been through that. That's kind of over. It's waning off now. Now it's time to be United Methodist again. And that, again, made me sit up in my chair and kind of puff out my chest. I'm like, yeah, I'm for that. Absolutely for that. Let's be united again on the same mission. Right, Rachel?
Rachel, do you? Yeah? No, she's like, I'm good. But, okay, so Ashley, you brought up something really important, and I think just realizing, like, everything that we do is very important. But it's kind of a twofold thing. Yes, everything that we do is vitally important, but you also realize you're part of this much bigger thing. And all of this ministry is happening across the state. And it really does give you a healthy perspective. And sometimes I get worked up in my own mind. Oh, we got this really big thing going on. We got to, work on this. And that's good and healthy and to have some urgency. But then at the same time, you're also like, okay, maybe I can take a breath, and we're going to get through it and it's going to be just fine. It will be fine because you see all of the great work that's being done across the state, and you know that, like, okay, maybe the thing that I'm making a big thing is not really a big thing. And you also talked about the importance of laity and the United Methodist Church. If I can say that we do anything, like who we have been historically, is we have been a lay-driven church. And you see that. Becky's making a face. You know what a lay member is? You know. We have been a lay-driven church, right? And the engine that makes the church go really is laity. It is, and it has to be. And so, hey, I walked in here tonight. Several of you were helping prepare meals. And how much of that work goes on to the church unnoticed by so many other people? Yet it's important work that's happening in the church. I'm looking here at some of the people that are here. Multiple home groups are happening, between several people of here. That's important work that happens in the life of the church. Because, one, I can't be there. We can't be everywhere at once.
Nope.
And two, here's the other reality. I can't reach everybody. Not everybody is going to relate to me in the way that someone might relate to you. So everyone who's a part of the church is so needed. This is one of the things I've said before, but it's like when you come to church on Sunday and you're there in your spot, if you have a spot. Raise your hand if you have a spot here. But if you come here and then a new person comes in and they sit near you, and then they come back again and you're there, oh, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Because especially if you made them feel welcome or safe the last time, then it just eases them even more the second time they would come back. Just that presence alone is powerful enough to have someone come and be a part of it because they know that, okay, I met this person and they were nice to me and I feel like I could go maybe be around them again. That is it feels so small, but it is everything. So the laity is important. Okay, so here's a question. I'm gonna ask this one, and then I'm gonna ask two questions, and you guys can take it wherever you want.
Okay.
It's like a popcorn.
All right.
And then we're gonna open it up for questions.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
If anyone has any. Oh, I don't think so. I think it's okay. We'll do this, and then we can maybe include that in the final edit or something. Is that fine? Okay. We're gonna send this out through YouTube and. what's the word I'm looking for? Podcast. Thank you, Ashley. So where did God show up for you? That's one of the questions. Or what do you think annual conference meant for St. Paul's? Bob's taking it.
That question, where I saw God at this annual conference, where he showed up for me, was right at the very beginning. I'm 76 years old, and I've never been to annual conference. I've been part of the United Methodist Church and its forerunners my entire life, but I've never been to annual conference. We get there, and I'm just kind of sitting here taking all this in. I'm a voting member. My vote counts just as much as anybody else's. And I really like being here at this annual conference. And then the bishop, in his opening address, he's talking about, welcoming people, and he's making the point that we have to be intentional about that. And he says, okay, I want everybody to get up out of their chairs and go find 3 people you don't know and tell them you belong here. So all of a sudden, I'm on the receiving end of that. I'm liking being here. And the next thing I know, I got people telling me I belong here. So that was a special moment for me.
That's great. Where did God show up, or what does this mean for St. Paul's? What do you think? Keenan?
Again, I want to just reiterate that a lot of things that I witnessed and seen and heard at annual conference this year was just reaffirming to me that what we're doing here at St. Paul's Joplin is we're on the right path. We're driving down the right road. I am so proud of our church. And when I'm out there in the world and I'm out there in the community, I talk about that here. I ask people, you go to church, and they're like, oh, we try it here, we try it there. It's like, come to ours. It doesn't matter. You can show up in shorts and flip-flops. Come on in. We will welcome you. And that was my own experience when I came here 14 years ago, was when I walked through the doors, it didn't matter that I was a black guy showing up at a white church. I was welcomed, and I felt welcome ever since then. And I love that about the annual conference, that it just certified in my mind that what I see and what I witness here every Sunday, every time the church doors are open, is exactly what the United Methodist Church is about. Where did God show up for me? I'm going to tell a real brief story here real fast. So all winter long, yeah. We really don't. All winter long, I've been plagued with this horrible, horrible cough. And if anybody knows me that's watching this or listening to this right now knows that my voice has changed. All winter, horrible, horrible cough. Can't get rid of it. I'm texting my doctor. What do we do? She, get this medicine, get that medicine. And I finally go to the doctor just a little bit before we go to annual conference. And while I'm sitting there with the doctor, we're looking at all my test results and everything, and she tells me some things that I didn't want to hear. And it's all because I'm a smoker. I've been smoking for over 40 years. So we're at annual conference. I'm still coughing. I've got some new medicine I'm having to take. And it feels like I'm getting better, but I'm not really sure. So I had a conversation with God. And I said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be sick anymore. I want to get better. I'm ready to do whatever it is that you need me to do to not be sick anymore. Being at annual conference for me is extremely powerful, especially when you're sitting in that room, 1,000 to 1,200 pastors and lay members are in there. You're singing a song, or we're having prayer, and things are going on. It's difficult not to feel the Spirit. It's just there. It's in the room, and it grabs you, and it envelops you. So I'm in my room, and I'm talking to God, and I'm telling him, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick, and I don't want to be sick. Help me. I heard God audibly speak to me in that room and say, you're not smoking anymore. You're done. And I haven't had a cigarette since. And I'm done. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not, fiending over it or anything like that. And that is just a real small example of how God shows up in our lives. And he can do it in the strangest of places. Now, I'm at annual conference. There's 1,200 people there. The Spirit is roaming freely. But even in all of that, he sought me out. He sought me out and heard my cry and answered my call. And that's how God shows up in my life. That's how he showed up for me at annual conference. And it was almost like the glass got cleaner, and I could able see everything a little bit clearer and brighter. And if you get a chance, if you're watching this and you're like, man, they're talking about some really cool things, I want to go to annual conference next year, you can. You can go to annual conference. You can experience the things that we're talking about. All you got to do is get with us, and we'll make it happen. It's a beautiful experience. There's a lot of business, but it's also a beautiful experience.
Bob said he's hooked for life. And Keenan, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that happened for you. Seriously, that's a big deal.
It is
a significant moment for you.
It's a very significant moment for me.
Okay, Rachel, Ashley.
It's the chair. Okay. So one of the things about annual conference for me, growing up in churches in a culture, it was kind of like growing up as a plant in the shade, where there weren't a lot of examples to help your imagination flourish of what possibilities were out there that you could do, or what, like, even if you felt some kind of call or gifts, they didn't seem to go anywhere because there wasn't anywhere for them to go. But that was a nice part about conference, was just getting to see lots of different people doing things, and how that opened up possibilities of what could try to do in the future. So.
Yeah, for you personally.
For me personally, yeah. I have a paper due Friday and 2 more classes and then thesis, and I'm done with seminary, so.
I do like the piece that you get to hear, like, all the cool things that the Methodist Church is doing. When they talked about the university and how they're helping inmates attend class or college online and complete GEDs, or actually college courses. And it's just a couple hundred right now, but it's going to be like 2,000 or something next year is what they're anticipating. We got to hear all about, like, the youth stuff that's going on in the state, which is just amazing. So the business, there is a lot of business for sure. But it's actually kind of cool to hear the different reports. But for me personally, I feel like God shows up. It's that ordination service, and I absolutely sit in the role of pastor spouse. And because it can be heavy. Like, you can think about, like, all the challenges. Like, sometimes we only focus on the hard parts of things, and you forget all the good things that we're doing. And but there's so much overlap. Like, as people get placed and moved, and you run into that friend that you haven't seen in a long time, and you see that pastor that helped you through, like, a horribly hard time. And it is so emotional, because that's where hope is. Like, I ran into the pastor one time. We were going through some stuff with my small group, and I said, God, how do we even get through all this? Like, where's the hope in any of this? He's like, it's you guys. Us laity, helping each other through really tragic times. And when you're at conference, you see that overlap of people's paths as they interweave between different areas of the state. And you see people starting their journey and ending their journey. And it's just, I am a crying mess during that whole service. The music, again, you have all these united voices, and that many of us don't know where we'll live in 10, 15, 20 years. But you know what? We're not alone. And, during the challenges that we have at church, somebody else is going through that same challenge somewhere. And, we literally, all we have to do is reach out. As the spouse, I get to run into other spouses. And we're on our own little journey. It's different. And it's a really beautiful reminder that we're not alone. Like, obviously, God's always with us, but we are, the hands and feet of God. And so we give each other that hope, and we help each other through those things. So that service, it destroys me every time, but it's so beautiful, and it's just a reminder of hope and unity, and we do it together.
I know you want to wrap this up. Britton, but I needed to brag on this
You're good.
guy just a little bit. I've been going for 3 years now. I went as a laity the first time last year. I was getting licensed, and I got my license at annual conference. And this year, I was an actual licensed local pastor. I had a color on that identified me as a licensed local
Yeah,
pastor,
you
and it was
did.
kind of cool. But last year and this year, I've watched this guy right here work his fingers to the bone, the behind the scenes, making it all happen, making sure people are where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to be doing. This guy's running around making it happen. From the time he gets there before we get there, and he doesn't leave until after we're back home and comfortable in our beds. And he's working the entire time. He exhausts himself up there. And annual conference doesn't happen without Pastor Britton Fields. He makes a lot of things happen. And it makes me proud to be his friend, to be under his leadership. He does a fantastic job representing not only St. Paul's United Methodist Church, but representing the movement of being an ordained pastor in our membership. And we're proud of you. We're all very, very proud of you in what you do, because you represent us well and you work your butt off to make sure things happen like they're supposed to. So thank you for doing that for us.
Thanks, man. that was really nice. Very, very nice. I mostly just try to make sure that the bishop is not upset. That's what I try to manage.
That's everybody's job.
I do want to say this. This is the last thing, and then I'll open it up if anybody has any questions. But for me, God showed up at it's the ordination service. We've mentioned this many times. So at the end of that service, the bishop offered a call to the people who were there, to the people who maybe God has placed something on your heart and you've resisted it, or maybe God has placed something in your heart and you're not sure if it's for you or not, or if it's real. Just come forward. We want you to talk to somebody, speak with somebody, let them pray over you and pray about it. And so I've been at, I don't even know how many annual conferences, probably 10 or so at this point. And usually there's a handful of people that come forward. This annual conference, there was like a couple, maybe 100, 150 people that came forward. I have not seen that in years. Yeah.
But yeah, like laity and pastors, like they were coming up in such support for one another, and like they had to pull out an extra table. Like it was beautiful. It was.
So all of these people come forward. And by the way, I know that there's people who are thinking about this stuff and they didn't go forward potentially, but so there's even more out there. And all of it just leaves me thinking, this is what I left with. The church is alive. Yeah. The church is alive. And we have a message that the world desperately needs to hear. And it's one of the love of Christ for all people, and the love of Christ that changes us and transforms us to be better, and the love of Christ that challenges us to get out in the world and to serve and care for one another. And it is alive, and we have it. We have that right here in this church, and so I'm excited about what the future holds. So that's what it meant for me. Do we want to open it up for questions? Bob, you got something else?
Well, I want to pick up on what you were
okay.
saying
Sure.
and end up bragging about St. Paul's.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
The issue that is facing the church, the conference, that's facing the bishop, is not having enough pastors. Last year, a year ago, he had 20 appointments, 20 charges that he didn't have anybody to send to him. Okay, and then we come to this year. There were, let me get my numbers right. There were 13 licensed local pastors that were commissioned since last annual conference, and 4 that were ordained, and 29 retired. So we went, from having a deficit of 20 last year to be that deficit is bigger this year. So there is a need conference-wide for pastors. And now I want to brag about St. Paul's. Y'all realize the number of people that were lay people, became a licensed local pastor, and have gone on to become lead pastor at another church. I mean, we just sent Dixie to be lead
Pastor
pastor
Dixie, Pastor
at
Trey,
Carthage.
Rick Flynn. You've got
Chuck Kralik,
Chuck Kralik.
Trey Lavaroni.
Yep. Bob Courtney, Bob Wynn, Ben Bainbridge. Yep.
So I want
I
to,
mean, there's more. You could just keep going.
yeah.
There's
so,
a lot.
so I want to brag on St. Paul's for helping to do something about supplying pastors for the rest of
And
the
good
conference.
pastors.
Yeah.
Really good pastors. Yeah.
So
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we're going to open it up. If anybody has questions for us, we're happy to answer them. This is a no pressure here.
You're gonna have to choose between all those hands.
I know. You don't even have to ask one if you don't want to, because we did such a great job explaining. Jerry's got a question. Jerry. Sure. Yeah, so the
Okay.
question was, where do we stand financially? Bob, you want to take
can
some
I
of that?
can
Take
I
some of it.
quote
Please.
Nate Berneking,
Please.
the
Yeah, you can do it better
conference
than I will.
treasurer? He said when he was speaking, he said that last year, he said we were fine financially. He says this year we're more than fine. So that's the words of the treasurer.
And I'll just piggyback on that. There is a picture that some people will paint about the church. It's all falling apart. And when you look at the state of Missouri, we still have almost 600 churches, just under 600 churches in the state of Missouri. Now, there are other conferences where a lot of people left, a lot of churches left. That didn't happen in Missouri. It did not. And we've been taking steps to prepare for this. So it was a few years ago, we went from 9 district superintendents down to 5 district superintendents. That helps us manage our salaries a little bit. And I feel like we're in a good place. We've got churches all over. In some cases, we may have too many at times. I really think that. And sometimes it's time for churches, they need to stop and restart or do something different. But we have churches all across the state of Missouri, and there is just a lot of health, I think, across the state of Missouri. So this picture that people might paint for you about the Methodist Church, I think it is a little bit it can be at times a knee-jerk reaction. Like the sky is falling, it's a sinking ship, we need to jump off. I just don't feel that in any way, shape, or form. Again, I go back to the end of the conference, I'm like, hey, the church is alive, God is really doing something here. And that makes me excited for the future ahead. That's a great question. Jerry, thank you. Others? Other questions?
Does anybody want my card? When you're at annual conference, if you're in the audience and you want to speak, you got to hold up your orange card, and the bishop recognizes you and directs you to a microphone. That's how you get to speak at annual conference. Anybody want my card?
And we did have a spirited debate on the conference floor.
Yeah.
It was over a budgeting issue. Should we increase the budget or not? And that was, there's back and forth about it. And, yeah, it was a spirited debate. Other thoughts, comments, questions? How are we feeling, everybody? Feeling okay? Okay, all right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, oh, Jerry's got another one. Okay. I was going to close this out with a prayer. Okay.
I know that this church is involved a lot with the homeless thing. Is there anything in the conference that deals with that issue brought up at all, or is that something that we kind of sweep under the rug?
I'm trying to think if there's anything specifically.
I don't recall anything specific being talked about at annual conference, but I like to think that each church has autonomy and the ability to
Talked about it in our legacy meeting. So
Okay.
in our laity meetings, we talked about different things that the local church is doing to reach out to their community and specific programs or activities that they're doing, even if it's anywhere from once or twice a year to a weekly basis. And so we shared just around like the table, different ideas. And again, that was much more of a laity focus, which is why you guys probably don't remember that, because we had a breakout session. And so we really did talk a lot about, again, empowering laity. There's a whole set of like curriculum out there so that laity can learn more about Methodist Church and really empower laity to start up some of these things and be able to maintain them as their local church within their local communities. But then also, again, the university talked a little bit about just the university providing education for the inmates. And I think that's one of those huge ways that you can kind of reach and have a really lasting impact. They didn't quite connect the dots there, but when I think about it, that's a big one that I would think of, because if without education and you're released back into the world, if you don't have the supports and you don't have the skills, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to go right back to where you were. So I think that's one of those really big ideas that the church is doing, statewide, but we did have conversations among laity about that. Anything else I missed about that?
Can I make one more
Sure,
comment?
sure.
I'll make it short.
You're fine. No, you're good. You're good.
Y'all
I'll
may
make it
be
short.
aware, but we have a Methodist University in Missouri, Central Methodist University, located in Fayette. But it is a university, it's part of the Methodist system. And the president, made a presentation. The president of the university made a presentation at annual conference, and he was talking about their prison ministry. He says they've been reaching out to prison inmates, and this past year they had 830 inmates that got college credits through Central Methodist University. And for the coming year, they are anticipating 2,300 inmates to get college credits to the university.
Yeah.
So there's other things going on in the conference.
Mm-hmm. But overall in the state of Missouri, I can't remember anything specifically about like some united front or coalition or anything about homelessness or poverty. There are some committees and groups that talk about those things, economic justice and whatnot, but there's nothing comprehensive that I know of going on across the state. But there are churches that are doing different things, kind of like we are here at St. Paul's, that are doing and trying different things to help. So
Maybe that would be a good thing for a lay member to start, some kind of coalition that's across Missouri, best practices, what actually helps, what doesn't, what are you trying, kind of like an internetwork, rather than just sporadic people here and there doing like, here's some lunch, and then someone else is like, here's a bed, but nothing's really coordinated, so yeah.
Jerry, do you want us to sign you up for that?
We'll just sign your wife up and you can
he
tell
said,
her
"You
later."
betcha." Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyone else? Thoughts?
My last thoughts would be, this is great, and I hope you've enjoyed watching this or being here with us tonight. And if you've ever wondered if you belonged, I hope we've answered that. And if you've ever wondered, I wonder if I can help. I wonder if I can get involved. I wonder if my talents and time will matter. Yes, they do. They do matter, and we'll take you. Come on in and tell us you want to help. We'll find something for you to do. We'll put you to work. We'll get you to the next annual conference. It really doesn't take anything more than a willingness. Just be willing to experience new things, do new things, get out of your comfort zone. Be willing to serve, and we'll make it happen for you. I could definitely use you at Wildwood.
That's definitely true. That's really true. Wonderful. Well, we're going to put this up on podcast, but I'll close this out. Actually, Ashley, do you want to close this out in prayer? Talking about empowering lay members. Bob, do you want to close this in prayer? Bob's taking it away. Okay. Thanks, Bob.
If you would join me in prayer. Our Father, we just thank you for this church. We thank you for the privilege that we have of serving you through this church. And we know that you will be there to guide us. We just ask that you would help us to see what you are guiding us to do. And just be with us and bless us. In Christ's name, amen.